happening, everyone? Hello, and welcome to the Review Roulette podcast, the podcast that brings strangers together for a movie night. I'm your host, Laura. Join me as I bring two strangers together as we watch and review a randomly selected movie. Now let's spin that wheel and see what movie Lady Luck has picked for us tonight. Here we get 8. Let's see. Robocop.
Nice.
We're watching Robocop. Oh, so Nick, you got your Robocop facts for us real quick? I've seen this movie so many times. I almost feel bad for you two that you have to suffer through watching this with me. Okay, so Nick's gonna give you some sweet Robocop facts, and we'll bring you guys on.
Oh, sorry. Robocop came out in 1987. Stars Peter Weller.
That's about it.
That's pretty much it. Well, it does have the dad from that 70s show.
Oh, that's right.
And almost as importantly, one of the great characters on
Stranger Things.
Not Stranger Things.
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks. Thank you.
You forgot your own favorite show. Okay, so we'll go with, we have our Andrew, also known as AnDread, who's my new favorite podcast creator and host. So we bring you, let's see. Hello, what's happening?
Hi. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to watch some Robocop.
Oh, have you seen Robocop?
I have, but what's interesting is that I did not grow up with this movie like a lot of people did. I don't think I ever saw it the whole way through until like a year or two ago. I decided it was time to finally sit down and watch Robocop the whole way through. It's one of those movies, and this is true with me, oddly enough, despite doing a movie podcast like you mentioned. I'm a horror movie fan primarily, so a lot of these more kind of, would you consider Robocop a blockbuster?
It was at the time, because I always keep forgetting. I keep thinking it's a cult classic, but it actually did have a successful release. Because I remember, like, when I watched it when I was little, I thought it was like a dumb action movie, and then when I watched it when I was older, I'm like, oh, it's just a horribly good satire movie. So it was just interesting to like, oh, it's like, I guess that's it's the same director as Super Troopers, so it's supposed to be the satire and what is it, Showgirls, the director. Not Super Troopers, sorry. I keep doing that. Starship Troopers. So the director of this one is the same director as Starship Troopers, Robocop, and then Showgirls.
Okay.
and Total Recall. And I think there's one other one that I can never remember. But yeah, it's Paul Verhoeven is the director.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So for me, I don't have the kind of nostalgia for it that a lot of people do. And I was just, I was not expecting that satire element because a lot of people talk about it as what you described as the dumb action movie. So it'll be interesting to hear our discussion and what everyone's thoughts on it are.
Oh, and then I guess you should say what your podcast is. I keep forgetting that this is an audio format. So what's the name of your amazing podcast?
So my podcast is called Freaks and Psychos, the Disability and Horror Podcast, and it explores the role of disability in the horror genre.
I just finished the Psycho episode last night at work. I was so excited, but I thought it was funny. You have both of your like the title names already done, so it's like I feel like you could just be done now. You're like, I've got Freaks done, I've got Psychos done, so I'm like, I guess this is it. I'm done.
So, no. I figured those were I should cover those two early on. It's only the 6th episode. But yeah, those are two of the heavy hitters, Freaks and Psychos. So I wanted to get those out of the way soon. But thank you for listening. Yeah, I think it was a good time, our discussion on that episode.
We're good. And then I'll bring on, this is my friend Aviva. This is my friend from high school who I'm using this podcast as the guys to get to talk to again. I was very excited.
Hi, good morning. Hello.
It's like for him, it's afternoon. He's in Eastern time.
Well,
yeah, I'm still morning. I'm still drinking coffee.
You're like, you don't need to know. How's it going?
Sunday brunch day. I'm doing well. actually in anticipation of this episode. So Laura had let me know about your podcast, AnDread, and so I've listened to the first couple episodes, and I'm excited to listen to more. Sort of recently, well, since my imagination took a less active downhill turn, I've gotten more interested in horror. So I've, over the last few years, started to like begin my education in all the horror films that I missed watching during my childhood. So it's been kind of fun to.
I feel like when we were younger, there was like that's when there was kind of like a gap in horror movies, because it seemed like the 80s had really good horror movies, and then, like recently does, but like I don't remember a good horror movie that came out. Like I think Paranormal Activity did, but like I don't remember. It was more like
also considering I was watching like classic Doctor Who during our childhood. You know, that's sort of where I was at horror wise / science fiction wise.
some
Which
of those
is very much like kind of puppet level of monsters. So
that's awesome, though. Thank you for checking it out and delving deeper into the horror genre.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to listening to more and getting back, watching more of the classics that I've yet to actually see. So yeah.
I don't know if this is a horrible pun, but I feel like with your podcast, it makes it like more accessible, because it's like I feel like I wouldn't just listen to a horror podcast, and then I don't know that I'd necessarily just listen to like just a strictly disability based podcast, but like having them both together kind of makes it just like, oh, you can kind of like think about things from a different way. I think that's how it, like with your I just keep thinking of different things that I never thought about with it, because I was like, oh, it still blows my mind when you said like most people who are blind aren't, like, it's really rare to actually be completely blind, because you said it was like a spectrum.
Yeah.
And I guess I always like that makes sense to me now. Like just thinking about it makes perfect sense. But it's just I was in every movie. It's just like everybody's just 100% blind. They can't see anything, and it's all dark. And it's just like, well, that doesn't seem realistic. But actually, I had a random question about that. I was because we had a patient that was legally blind. Is there a quantitative definition of legally blind? Like, is there like a number, like a 20, like not 20/20, like a, because I was just wondering, because it's like, well, I have glasses because it's like I can't see that well, but I was just like, I didn't know if that was the spectrum of like you can't see very well to like what's the division between like visually impaired and then legally blind?
Well, visually impaired is just more of a descriptive thing that I think as more of an identifier. Legally blind, as the name would imply, is a legal definition. So there is a more precise cutoff. I believe what it is that you would have to have 20/200 in your best eye, because some people like myself have different acuities in each eye, in your best eye, and without correction, so not being corrected with glasses. If your vision is correctable by glasses or any kind of anything like that, then you would not be considered legally blind. Yeah. So there's also another part of it that it has something to do with your field of vision. It's a less common designation, but usually they go by the 20/200 thing.
Like the your field of vision, is it just like the degrees that you can see like in front and the side? Is that kind of what that would be?
Yeah, and I'm less familiar with that measurement. Like I said, it's not something that is typically you don't see as much of, but and I have 20/200 in my best eye, and then 20/400 in my other eye. So I'm kind of right on the threshold, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering, because we had the patient. I was just like, because she could see. I talked to her for a little while. She said everything was because she was completely blind in one eye, and then I forgot what she had said with the other one, but she said it was just like shades of different colors is kind of what she could comprehend, but it wasn't like she knew where I was from my voice, but she couldn't really see anything different. So it's hard to think what other people see when you're so used to seeing what you see yourself. So I was wondering about like if there's an actual like quantitative like division. That was my one creeper like disability question for you. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I mean, I'm glad, that it's when people are curious to know more. I think that's good. It shows an engagement instead of just being afraid to even, tackle the subject. So, and thank you for the comment about it being accessible. I mean, that's really my hope for the show, and in many different ways, from bringing subjects to people who might not otherwise be interested in them, to bringing sort of academic ideas to a popular audience. All those things are what I'm trying to go for. So thank you.
Yeah, because I think that I was like, I just kept thinking of like I had all the movies I put on here I haven't seen, or I've seen, except for I put Hush on here just because it sounded so good when you guys were talking about it. Like I was
yeah.
I want to see that one too.
But so what's the next episode that's going to come out? What's that one going to be?
Next week, it will be on Hereditary, Ari Aster's Hereditary, which is a pretty intense movie for most people. I don't know if I would suggest that for any newcomers to the genre. But I'm covering that with Jay of the Dead, and then after that, I think I'm going to try to do an episode on Christmas horror. I'm still trying to work out the details on that, because there's many. This is something too, if you're interested in delving into horror, check out some Christmas horror movies, because there's tons of them. There's more than there are Halloween set horror movies, strangely. And there are a few that involve disability in them. So I think that'll be fun.
My husband loves horror movies, and I'm just like, I'm good. I like my giant monster movies and my sci-fi movies.
Krampus. Watch Krampus.
I love Krampus. That's
okay.
I was like, I love the way that movie sounds. Like, it has the best sound design of any movie, because it just makes you feel like you're there just from like hearing like the wind blowing and the horrible hooves of that horrible monster. But then, and then the whole time you're like, oh, the people are just monsters. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Gremlins, that count.
Is Gremlins a horror movie? I don't know.
It's a
Christmas movie.
I would consider it a horror movie. I would consider it what some people would call like gateway horror, where it's like it's sort of a kids movie, sort of fantasy, more fantasy type, but it's got some horrific moments in it.
Yeah.
I mean, the speaking of disability stuff, the old woman who gets
the chair
in the wheelchair, Isn't there a scene where a gremlin gets put in the microwave or something too?
Yeah.
In the blender.
I feel like
in the blender. Yeah. I knew it was some kitchen appliance.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of stuff that delves into paranormal areas also crosses over with disability, in terms of the representation. I don't know. I've been watching. My husband and I have been watching all the way through X-Files.
And I love that show when I was.
I love it too, but some of the episodes are just like, oh my god, like this would never be made today. This is just really.
Have you watched the black and white episode yet?
The which one?
The black and white episode.
Yes.
I feel like you remember.
I kind of wish I had just skipped it.
Yeah.
The episode that I watched last night was called Badla, I think, which is about actually a disabled Indian man who has like abilities to appear as other people, and I just that's one to unpack a little bit. That was pretty just horrific, and just the implications is
Is that the one where he's on the cart?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, he is played by, I believe the actor is actually.
The actor's he's quite famous. He was the guy. He was also in Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory.
It's Roy Deep, right?
Roy Deep, yeah, or Deep Roy, I think. I think Deep is his first name, yeah. But Yeah, I don't know. I was just like, I'm still thinking about it. It's just like, okay. There's some really good episodes, and then other ones are just so cringeworthy. But
it's not a show that has aged well, because when I have rewatched it in recent times, it's like, this is, I mean, just for many reasons. I mean, there are many storytelling things too, just aside from the social aspects of it, just like some of the way that there's so many gaps in, like things
I
that you're
mean, yeah.
so
Well,
but
yeah, like
I still like, I mean, I just remember how intensely I loved it when I was, I was on in the 90s when that's when I was like a teenager, and I was so into it because I was obsessed with the paranormal and the occult and all that. So I kind of saw a little bit of myself in Fox Mulder.
yeah, definitely. No, it's and I'm literally just like, I watched all the way through Seinfeld. I'm watching all the way through X-Files. I just didn't get certain like television viewing experiences when I was a child, so I'm just like finally making up for it. But they also did like X-Files Cops or whatever it was, which was insane and ridiculous and just hilarious. And of course now like Cops, I think, is canceled for good reason, but but that was quite entertaining.
Yeah, I saw the most recent the season 11 or whatever it was called. There's season 10, season 11, and
then there's the movies.
The film, yeah, there's a couple films now, yeah.
I did not really enjoy the new seasons. I was pretty disappointed, but that's just, you can't recapture you can't recapture the spirit of the original creation, so.
However, what I was not disappointed by was the recent Twin Peaks movie. Oh my God.
I have not seen that. I have not seen the return to Twin Peaks.
Well worth it, especially if you're sort of interested in more like cerebral takes of television. I've never seen television like that in my life. And there was a piece of music. So I was a music major for undergrad, and there's a piece that I never thought I would ever hear outside of a like music education context, and he used it. Okay. I'm totally blanking on what it was called. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I'm definitely a fan of Twin Peaks. So
I had never seen the first run of it, and then my husband had, and then he was like, "We need to watch this," and I was like, the whole time, like I was confused the whole time, but like I could not stop watching it. I was like, I have no idea, because I kept asking him like, so he's like, well, that was the lady that was married to the guy that likes the mom.
You really have to watch the first season to have any context at all.
But I was like, I was so captivated the whole time. Like I don't think I've been like, and then there's just long cuts of like there's the one scene where everything's exploding, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
So that's where the piece of music comes in.
Like, is Eraserhead horror?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people have talked about it as horror. Like, I would consider there's a subgenre of art house horror where they're artsy films, but they're also very horrific. So yeah, I would count it. I mean, there's some pretty disturbing things in there. Actually, I'm not scared. What's that?
I said I was scared watching that. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge David Lynch fan, honestly. I did like the original Twin Peaks, and I like Eraserhead, and I like The Elephant Man, and then the rest I'm kind of. Velvet was good to an extent, but I did not like Mulholland Drive. I did not like Lost Highway.
I haven't watched much David Lynch beyond Twin Peaks, to be honest. I keep trying to work myself up into like sitting down and watching Dune and suffering through that, but I don't know if I'm even gonna do it.
Well, there's a new one supposed to be being made, so I'm probably gonna just watch that and not, because everyone says the David Lynch version is horrible.
pretty bad. Yep.
That movie is like watching like a really weird Doctor Who episode, but like Sting's in it for some reason, and then Patrick Stewart's in it. You're like, why are these people in this movie? Why are these weird things? Yeah, that's so bad. Well, like I said, I guess
also, I've never seen Robocop, so this is going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite movies. I don't know why. I just like I have like 5 movies that I like to put on, and then this is like this one.
Like your comfort film.
Yeah, we have the unedited one, right?
Yeah.
So there's always the one that they play on TV, and most people are like, oh, I've seen Robocop. I'm like, you've seen the unedited one. It's pretty bad, but it's pretty great. So I'm gonna have to suffer through Robocop with me. I apologize, but it's gonna be fun. It'll be fun. And then and you both get to add movies to the lotto. So AnDread, what do you want people to force to sit through? If you had to recommend something.
Yeah, it can be anything, or
ideally we're renting it off Amazon. So if it's available through Amazon,
because obviously my mind goes to horror, right? So you said you said you haven't seen Don't Breathe, so that's one I think I would just be curious to hear your thoughts on, if you don't mind adding that one into the mix.
I will add Don't Breathe.
I mean, like Mars Attacks is always.
It's already in here. I love that.
Great. Yeah. Good. I would expect nothing less. Yeah. What else? Do you have Troll Hunter in there?
No, we don't have that one.
Oh yeah,
we'll add that one because I know that one's short. Because let's see.
I don't know if you do movies with subtitles, but
it's like subtitles, and then because is it Scandinavian?
Yeah, I think it's set in Norway.
Troll Hunter is great. That's a fun movie, and that director has done some great, more straightforward horror movies like Autopsy of Jane Doe and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So,
really? Oh, I didn't realize that was the same director.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wow. Yeah. Nick watched that movie, and I was like, because he loves the books. He had the books from before, and like he's like, I remember show you this one scene, and it's the one where like they keep turning around, and it's always the same lady coming down the hallway. Why do you have to show me that? Because it looks like it's like a hospital. It's a hospital, isn't it? It just has the hospital hallways at work, and I'm like, I don't want to because I work at night. I don't want to think this woman is always coming after me at work. It's like it's already dark and creepy there now.
You don't already experience that, Laura?
Oh, I mean, I hear noises that aren't there. It's great. It's fun. Oh, it's so creepy. Got Robocop ready.
Okay, we're just going to go watch the movie now, and we'll be right back here for our review in part 2 in just a second. But just so you don't feel left out, here are some choice clips from us watching the movie.
What?
Yep.
What are you doing?
It just played a random movie.
Oh, yeah, that's not how Robocop starts. I was like, what is that?
Let's get started with part 2, shall we? But first, if you'd like to be a guest on the Review Roulette podcast, just sign up at our website. It's www.reviewroulettepod.com. That's www.reviewroulettepod.com.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Is that better than
Bridesmaids? Yeah. Is Bridesmaids still in rotation?
No, I took it out.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was like, I don't know if I can be on here again if it's still in rotation.
It's not. I put it on the board like it happened, and then we're just going to pretend that it didn't.
Yeah, it did happen.
It did.
It did.
As long as it was better than the Bridesmaids, that was all that matters. Did you like it because it was the first time you've seen it?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Is that what you thought it was going to be?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Like it was great. So I guess our grading for this will be, we're going to do character, story, and enjoyment. And then the enjoyment is specifically to this situation that we're in here with us watching it. Not just like, I guess it's your first time watching it, so I guess it would be an overall enjoyment of Robocop.
Sure.
So I guess did you guys like the characters? I don't. I every time I see some of the actors, I just think of that. Every time I see the Twin Peaks guy,
I know.
the dad from Twin Peaks, he's got such like an expressive face, and it's just like I feel like he's like the best character actor. It's like you can't see him as anything else other than the first thing you see him in.
Yeah.
It's like very generic characters. That one's kind of hard with this one. But yeah, if you guys were to rate, we'll go with Aviva. So if you were to rate the characters, this whole movie,
what scale are we working on again?
What 1 to 5? So like 1 to 5, we'll do 0.5. So just like, did you think they were? I mean, they're not really. It's hard when it's a satire because they're supposed to be like a strict definition of a character, but
I mean, the characters were a little bit one-dimensional, but it's. I mean, that makes sense for the kind of movie it is.
I mean, he literally is a cop and a robot.
Yeah,
he is Robocop.
Right. Sort of like the very like stereotypical kind of justice-oriented. I don't know. It's still like satisfying by the end of the movie, but I didn't come to it for the characters, or I didn't, we didn't like watch it for the characters.
I relate to Robocop.
Yeah, I don't know.
Am I supposed to relate to like the cop lady? I don't feel like I relate to her either.
I don't particularly relate. Yeah. I felt very bad for. Was it Ed? Ed what?
Yeah, the robot character.
I kind of related to that guy. Yeah.
Well, I hate stairs too. Stairs are dumb.
Anyway, what did you think, AnDread?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I mean, there really wasn't too much to the characters. They seem to be more like they provided a certain function in the story, and that really was it. I think the whole thing, whether he's Robocop, is he Murphy, is he both? Like, I think that's really the most interesting aspect. And I guess the dad from the 70s show was his name Bodeker, Clarence Bodeker. Like, he also had a this kind of arch villain type of personality. So I mean, I did appreciate that, I guess. So what did you say? What was your rating?
So like just 1 through 5, like characters, because they're more like caricatures instead of characters. But yeah, so 1 through 5. What did you like characters?
I guess I would give it a 3, considering that the type of movie it is. It's hard pressed to go higher, but I think for the kind of movie it is, it's slightly better than average, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Oh, I'll do that too. Yeah, because I think if they would have not been as good, then the satire probably wouldn't have came off quite as well. Because I keep thinking that there's more of that in this, but then I keep remembering that Starship Troopers has like way more in there, and I always kind of think it's the same level. But this one isn't as like fascism happy. That one's more. This one's more the capitalistic. I love the commercials. I wish those were characters, like that little dinosaur selling the car.
Yeah,
it's like I do appreciate the commercials. Yeah, they're a little bit. They seem a little bit random sometimes, but
yeah, I think the director must really like those because he has that, and then he has like the ones in Super. I keep saying Super Troopers, Starship Troopers. He has the Would You Like to Know More? Like those the ones in Starship Troopers. It's like all the 3, and then Story, same ranking, 1 through 5. I feel bad because it's like a favorite movie. I was just like 5s for all of them, but then after I watch it, I'm like,
I don't know. I think I'd give it a like at least a 4. It made sense. I mean, it did like follow a logic throughout, more or less.
Funny seeing like late 80s logic for like the computer stuff. Be like, there's just going to be more dials and more little screens doing more physical things. And we're like, maybe everything just has a big screen. It's like, no, more dials. Like Star Trek, there's going to be more dials for everything.
Was that always? Well, I mean, when you see Robocop in the room and it shows like the 2 oscilloscopes on top, I'm like, those don't do anything in that. That's what I used to work on computers with.
I was like, I don't know. It was like an oscilloscope and then like seismometer for some reason.
And there's 2 oscilloscopes on top of each other.
It's like, they look cool, so they put them in. Probably had some sonar in there too. So Andre, what do you keep saying Andre, Andrew, and I keep putting AnDread and Andrew together.
Yeah, that's okay.
AnDread.
Yeah, probably 3.54 I think is fair. It's I guess for story, it's hard to say story because it's like you're saying, it's satire, but it's also functioning as an action movie, which it's more like a collection of action scenes, I feel like, than a story per se, although there's sort of this revenge story, I guess, that's put in there. It almost is like a mashup of like a Dirty Harry movie with like uh, a satire of like of corporate culture and I don't know, like police politics or something. It's I guess story would be the place where we would talk about the satire element, right? Is
Yeah.
that
That's
so?
where it's hard to differentiate.
What do you two make of the satire? Like what exactly is being satirized? Because on the one hand, obviously, like I said, it seems corporate culture is being satirized, maybe our reliance on technology. But at first I was thinking, is this a satire of like those Dirty Harry or Death Wish movies, like those revenge movies? But it seems to be firmly on the side of vengeance and on the side of the like police. Like the enemies are the criminals and the corporations, which they're kind of like interchangeable, but the police are actually like the everyday workers who are threatening to strike and everything.
Right.
So I don't know. What do you think about the satire element?
I always think of it as like capitalism too, where it's just like they literally own the cops, and then like the through line I always like is essentially the reason he becomes Robocop is because he was a good cop, so they moved him. So the company had the power to move all the good cops to those crappy bureaus, so they would essentially get killed. So they were just waiting for one of the good ones to get killed. So it's just like they didn't even care like about that he was a person. It was just like he was just
Right.
he had good like hand-eye coordination and he scored well on this test. So we'll move him to a crappy area so he can become like a different type of asset. So it's just like moving stuff around. I think that's why he put like the commercials in there too, where it's just like I always love the heart commercial. Like that's my favorite commercial because like we care. And it's like I've seen so many stupid like pharmacy commercials or like even at work when people come to sell like the hospital stuff, it's just like
Or the
they always have
healthcare
these dumb
commercials I've seen.
slogans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
it's almost like the corporate ecosystem is I don't know. It's just I was attributed to capitalism and like the whole point is like instead of making Detroit better, they're just building a better city next to it. Like they're not like that's what Delta City was supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be the new Detroit and then the old Detroit. It's just like why not make what you have better already? It's like why do you improve the already failing infrastructure? It's like no, we'll scrap it. So it's like kind of like consumerism and just waste and just getting rid of everything. It's like instead of making the cops better, they just built a better cop. It's like they could have just given more money to the cops. So yeah, I was kind of think of it more as like the capitalism satire. Like excellent.
Yeah. What was the show supposed to be? Like the show that they feature, what's that a satire of? Like, is that supposed to be a show that would have
I
been
was
going
wondering
on
if
at the
it's supposed to be
time?
like back when they only had like 5 channels, everybody only had like the 5 different things to talk about. So it's just like but everybody just thinks it's hilarious. I wonder because the director's like written a couple books. I want to read them because it sounds like he's kind of like a Swedish version of David Lynch in a weird way, where it's like he wanted to make these movies and then nobody understood him. So then they made him make Showgirls, and then he left and went back home. And like he still directs movies to this day. I think he's like 92. He made a movie that won an Oscar, the European Oscar. It's like but it's just, it seems like what he had in mind did not quite make it through.
Well,
which I guess that's probably the sake for most people's movies when they make things where like I had this amazing picture in my head and then Showgirls happened or something like that.
Yeah. What this came out in 87. Were sitcoms yet a thing at this point? Because I feel like it reminded me of sitcoms where like the characters are doing stupid or like
the laugh
shitty
track kind of
things,
stuff.
and people are finding it hilarious. Yeah, and it's like if you take the laugh track out and watch it without that, you realize how awful it is.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know if sitcoms were really that big in the late 80s. I'm trying to think.
I guess
Oh
that
yeah.
I'd buy that for $1 kind of reminds me of like Three's Company, where it's just like really dumb situations that these people are put in that make no sense, but people are supposed to relate to them. It's like, yeah, I totally have some weird, creepy, like mechanic neighbor that comes over and doesn't knock, and all these weird shenanigans happen all the time. Where it's like, but everyone's like, oh, this is just like my life. It's like, no, it's not. No.
Well, and they had the one-liners like on Family Matters, right? Urkel, did I
Did
do
I
that?
do that?
Full House. I know the little girl Michelle would always be like, "You got it, dude." Like, so. Well, what about the depiction of crime and the police? I mean, obviously that was a big part of this too, but I'm not. It's hard for me to really read um, if that's involved in the satire as well, or that was just kind of more of a plot device to
Mm.
to move the how to make it an action movie, I guess.
Yeah. I wonder if they had to make it very, because it seems very like there's no gray area with any of these cops, like with any of these criminals. It wasn't like, oh, maybe he did this. Like, no, it's like they were like attacking that woman. That man was holding the mayor hostage. It's like there's no like, oh,
And
maybe.
they act so goofy, like
Yeah.
they're not just committing crimes and like trying to get the job done, which is from what I know of criminals, they're just trying to get it done and get out of
Yeah.
there. But they're like taunting and acting so like I said, theatrical. It's like
Yeah. I was thinking the one scene
they
where he's
want
like
to.
breaking into the drug place and they're just like standing there and they're waiting for him to like get into his right like marking spot for like their right frame. And I was like, I feel like if that was any other movie, like even a movie now, they would just like as soon as the door came down, or they'd be shooting through the door and there would be scenes of him trying to like not get hit by the bullets of being shot through the door.
Yeah.
And there'd be less like glass window throwing, I guess, in a movie now. But yeah, it's just oh, it's an interesting movie to think about the different things that they wanted to do, and then even thinking about like it would have just been a really weird movie about a RoboCop. Like it wouldn't have been like, oh, are you thinking like you wouldn't be thinking about the satire? You'd just be like, oh yeah, he had a cool outfit, and then, or like, I think if it would be any other movie, I think they would have like featured his family more. They would have tried to like have him be reunited with them. I think that would
Yeah.
have been if like
Yeah.
a different type of movie. I think that would have been a very key element of him needing to like, because he doesn't need to find himself. He just kind of like realizes he's a different thing. But I think other movies
Mhm.
would have been like, you need to rediscover your humanity. It's like, well, maybe he never lost it. He's just always been Murphy and RoboCop. I don't know. It's a
I don't know if I would enjoy that.
no. It would not be as
I think it
good.
would. I think it would have made it seem too schmaltzy or something. I mean, my guess is that this all came about by the title RoboCop just popped into someone's head, and they're like, RoboCop, that sounds cool. Now we got to make a story around it.
Yeah.
Because we were looking into it. So it's like Stan Winston had hired Phil Tippett who for Jurassic Park, and Phil Tippett was the one that did the for the
Oh,
dinosaurs. So he's went from like dinosaurs to the Ed 2.09, and then he did the CG for Starship Troopers, and then I can't remember all the different movies, but like the man's worked on a lot of. So it's he did Coneheads. I was thinking of watching
nice.
the movie that
Wow.
is Coneheads. He does amazing practical effects on. But yeah, but I guess enjoyment. Did you guys have fun? you're like you're like, yeah, you guys
Yeah.
look all excited. You're like you're like, Aviva, did you have fun? Did you have fun?
I did. I also I probably enjoyed it more having like watching it with other people and being able to commentate.
Yeah.
Like that's always something that I enjoy a lot in the style of MSD3K. I think this movie lends itself to that. So yeah, no, it was good.
A lot of the movies I picked for this, I'm like, I don't want to like, I want to do good movies, but it's like I don't want movies where people are like trying to watch them intently. It's like, no, you got to make fun of them at the same time. Like, that's the fun
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
I was like, so what would you rank your enjoyment out of 5? That's just like feels like half.
Yeah, I think like a 4.5. Yeah.
Okay.
You may only pick 5 out of 5.
Yeah, you can only pick 5 out of 5. What's your turn? AnDread, what did you have fun? Were you glad you actually got to come?
Yeah. No, I hate to sound like I'm just copying here, but I would say the same, about a 4.5. Like it was fun, and I think watching it with you two was enhanced that. And it's one of those 80s movies that is like it's has that dumb action movie quality to it that's like kind of fun to make fun of, but it has a little bit something deeper to it, where the satire element, and I think it's aware of what it is. It's not trying to be any kind of dramatic masterpiece. It's trying to be something fun, and even though there's a lot of violence in it, it actually, we mentioned Gremlins earlier, and it's not. I'm not saying it's like that in terms of like being kid oriented, but it's Gremlins has some violent, disturbing things in it, and yet it's like supposed to be somewhat lighthearted and fun, and that's kind of how I think about Robocop.
But I was really glad you guys got to come. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
to watch
thank
Robocop,
you.
especially Robocop. It was just like, it's my favorite movie. I'm gonna say that about all the other movies because that's pretty much all I picked until everybody else's movie starts
Your
cycling
favorite
and be like,
movies?
oh, this is Aviva's favorite movie. And then when they're not good and people don't like them, be like, nobody liked the movie. And it's like, no, I'll be fine.
No, if they're like this, they're probably going to be fun, and I think the social aspect of this, just if we had all watched this on our own and then came back together and talked about it, I think it'd have been a different experience.
What was the show that you talked about last time, Aviva? That was on Netflix. You said it was like
yeah, Norseman.
Oh, that's right. Because you said that one was really good.
I do recommend that. It's they have an English version. They're like all
like dubbed over.
No, they're not. They all speak perfect English.
Oh, nice.
Because
that's even
where was it? Yeah, so it's again a Norwegian cast, and they all speak like perfect English, and then they also have a Norwegian version.
Wow.
Where they speak Norwegian. Yeah.
Whoa.
So they just filmed both at the same. Is that what they did? They probably filmed both of them at the same time.
I don't know. I assume so. I haven't actually watched it in Norwegian, but yeah, like you can hear and appreciate their accents in speaking English. It's like it's been talked about as like a modern day Monty Python-esque, which it's even more like downplayed humor from Monty Python, but it's pretty clever. I really
just like silly walking around everywhere. And...
No, yeah, it's not quite like that. It's more
no coconuts or anything. They have actual horses.
It's more like how they talk about things. Like they try to be it's sort of these they're Vikings, right? So they like rape and pillage, but they're very like PC about stuff, and they're like trying to like not use like pronouns and use the right pronouns, and it's just like, oh my god, so it's and they try to be conscious of each other's feelings and talk about their emotions, and it's just really
sounds great.
Really worth watching.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But I'll let you guys go because
all right.
It's like, well, and it won't be bridesmaids, so it's gonna be good. And I'm so glad you both could come. I'm so excited.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Aviva, it was nice meeting you.
Yeah, great meeting you, AnDread. Yeah, I'll
Thanks
keep
for
listening to your
podcast too.
Yeah, I expect to be on your podcast. I don't like horror movies, so I don't really know what I can contribute to it. But... This has been the Review Roulette podcast. I'm your host, Lora. Special thanks goes out to our guest today. We had Aviva and Andrew. You can check out Andrew's podcast,
Freaks and Psychos, the Disability and Horror podcast through any major podcast providers. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, just check out our website. It is www.reviewroulettepod, that's pod.com.